What's up, guys? I am so happy to be with you here for week 2 of our lesson series, Family Matters. All right. So, I remember there was a time when I was in elementary school, like 5th, maybe 6th grade. I went over to a friend's house and just realized very quickly that things were different. See, I didn't have a bad home, but my father worked away and mom worked, and it was just one of those moments where we spent a lot of times with our older siblings, and we had dinner that was food. We had food on the table, but we never really sat down together because there was always busyness doing everything from baseball to the store to everything else. And I go over to these friends' house, and they said, "All right, let's sit down for dinner." And I said, what do you mean, together? It was kind of one of those things like, but it's not a special meal. It's not Sunday, but it's Tuesday. But yeah, they sat down. I could realize things were different. And so the thing is, as kids, we see our parents kind of as these superheroes and our families as being great. And that's good. Or at least we kind of hope that our family is somewhat normal. But sometimes things happen, okay? Things change. It's a moment when we realize that our family isn't as perfect as we thought it was. All right, that our parents aren't as infallible. For me, one thing, I used to think my father was the strongest man in the world until one day he looked at me. I used to run up to him and jump, and he'd pick me up and go, "Yay!" and spin me around. And the day that he told me I was too big was hard. Came earlier than expected. But it was a hard moment, and then you realized that it wasn't a perfect situation, that he wasn't the strongest person in the world anymore. So it's a hard moment when these things come in. Some of you may have realized a long time ago that your family isn't perfect. Some of your earliest moments might have to do with some pain because of family, whether it's divorce or whatever. But some of you discovered this later on. Maybe it was middle school or earlier high school, elementary, whatever it was. Your family's imperfection became more and more obvious. You started to see different things. Maybe there was a divorce. Maybe there was a remarriage. Maybe all these different things. But all of a sudden, you realize that your picture of your family isn't what it used to be. All right? So, every one of us could possibly go around here and tell everyone about a dysfunctional story in our family. We all have one, okay? We all have one because in one way or another, every family is fractured. Every family has some brokenness. We are not perfect because we are not perfect beings. Maybe your family lives with constant tension. You don't really slam doors and yell, but you constantly feel this anxiety. You feel it when your parents talk about their money or their jobs. You feel it around your brother or your sister, or when certain subjects come up that shouldn't cause conflict, but somehow they do. And this makes you feel like there's just a lot of stress in your house. For some of you, maybe you discovered that your family lives with secrets. You never really saw it when you were younger, but now you know. Maybe you've discovered some things that you wish you never did about the relationships that your parents have had, or a legal problem, or a bad decision that they made in their past. And now, because of the secrets, you wonder if you can ever really trust your family. And for a lot of you, your family has experienced a fracture of some sort. Again, maybe a divorce between your parents, or your parents get remarried. You thought that the drama was over. It was hard enough to get through the first time, and then if it happens again, but it's not. There is no new normal with your family. Then there's the custody and all that stuff and all the drama. Your parents, who you thought were great, aren't anymore because there's that constant butting of heads back and forth. Now you wonder if your family relationships can ever be restored, if there could ever be any kind of normal. Regardless of your family story, I think it's important to know and remember that every family is fractured. There is no pain like family pain. And I think all of us know that deep down inside that our family should be better. It should be happier. It should be more forgiving. In our minds, most of us have this ideal family, okay? The one we wish we had, the one that we thought we had when we were really little, and then we start seeing things for what they are. We have that, and we see that in our mind, and we want that. And the distance between our ideal family and our actual family can cause some pain. And that's typically when we respond in one of two ways. We either count our family out or we count ourselves out. And because of that, we like to think that there are tensions, secrets, and fractures, and that those things are permanent. And when you think about your family, they're temporary. And so the fracture is permanent, but the family is temporary. Maybe you count your family out because your parents were divorced and you thought that they lost the authority in your life, so you stopped respecting them. Maybe you decided that your stepmom isn't a good role model, so you're not going to listen to her. Maybe you decided to shut out one of your siblings because of something that they did. Whatever the reason, we use our family members' mistakes as reasons or an excuse to not listen to them or not include them in our lives. We say things like, I don't have to listen to you, or be in a relationship with you because of what you did or didn't do. We count ourselves out. Maybe we don't say it out loud, but we give up on our families. We isolate ourselves. We stay in our rooms the entire time that we're home. We think, I'm done with my dad not showing up. I'm done with my mom nagging me. My family feels like a bunch of hypocrites, so I'm done. I'm not going to count on them for anything. I'm going to count down the days until I'm 18, and then I'm out of here, and I never, ever have to come back. Okay? All of us have probably felt the pull of wanting to pull away from our family. And we probably know it's really not the best idea, but what's the alternative? What else can we do? What else are we supposed to do? Shouldn't our parents be the ones trying to fix this, not us? What if I told you that there's one idea that you may have never considered that could change the way that you see your family forever? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, here's the good news. God has a long history of working with dysfunctional families. There are a ton of them recorded throughout the Bible. God has never written off any of these family, or anyone because of the family they came from. One of the most famous people in the Bible is a man named Abraham. Father Abraham had many sons. Well, actually, he had to have one first. And so he had one son. One that for this side of the story. So his son Isaac. Isaac eventually had two sons, Esau and Jacob. So the family drama began. All right. So sibling rivalry about ready to happen, and it gets real fast. All right. So Jacob and Esau could not have been any more different than each other. Esau, the older brother, he was a hunter, a warrior, a man of action. Jacob, on the other hand, was more of an artist. He was a thinker, a poet. He was also a bit of a liar and a con artist. And so the stage was set for some good old family tension, okay? As the oldest brother, Esau, was guaranteed a birthright, okay? A birthright meant that, according to the custom of the time, that he got a double portion of the inheritance. He got the father's blessing. That basically meant that he would become the head of the family, because these families worked in kind of a tribe mentality. They stayed together. Very rare did someone go off and do something else. They kind of stayed together because there was safety in that. So this was a big deal. All right. So, that was one of those moments that, how things work. And so with that tension involved, and Jacob realizing that he wasn't going to get as much or never be in charge, and it was all Esau, that sets the stage for what's going on. One day Esau was out hunting, when he arrived, and he was hungry. Okay. He was super hungry, sit down and eat a whole pizza all by himself. And then he comes home and smells Jacob's cooking, and he asks his brother for a bowl of soup. Okay. And that's where things go a little bit screwy here. So, In Genesis chapter 25, it goes on, so the boys grew up. Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once, when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished. He said to Jacob, Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished. Jacob replied, First, sell me your birthright. That escalated quickly. All right, look, I'm about to die, Esau said. What good is a birthright to me? Again, a little dramatic, but Jacob said, Swear to me first. So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. So Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. So this is classic sibling rivalry, older brother, younger brother. All right. So in that drama that we can recognize today, maybe not as dramatic as I'm so hungry I'm gonna die. Now that I've been around, kids of my own and been around a lot of you guys for long enough, I understand that phrase, I'm so hungry I'm going to die, because I've heard some of you say it before. You're not actually going to. Trust me, you'll make it. But it's kind of one of those things that you see it, and we can see ourselves in these situations. We can convert it to a modern thing. And so we understand that family dysfunction has been a thing for a very long time. So we're going to fast forward a little bit in their story. When Isaac was dying, Jacob did trick and get the birthright blessing. That was meant from Esau. So in response, Esau was so angry and so bitter that he decided that the only course of action that he could do was to kill Jacob. When Jacob learned of this, he ran away. All right, I get it. He ran away. Good decision. Hunter dude, really kind of tough and whatever. I'm not quite as tough. I'm bouncing out. All right. So he ran away with no plans to ever come back. So this was family drama at the next level. All right. So when we argue, I don't really think of, murder, but that's where it went. All right. So despite all of that, don't miss this. Jesus came from this family. All right, this is part of Jesus' heritage. God knew their mess and saw how fractured they were, but he didn't run away from them. He didn't quit using them. He used them anyway. Not only did God use this family, the book of Hebrews records the story of Jacob and Esau thousands of years later as a celebration of faith. Their story is part of the lineage of the people and the families that God used for the plan of salvation. And here's what Hebrews 11 says. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regard to their future. So what's amazing is the writer of Hebrews obviously isn't celebrating the drama, all right? Isn't celebrating the dysfunction of this family. They aren't being held up as a role model to follow, full of lying, deceit, and threats of violence. They aren't mentioned as people that we can try to mimic our life after. They are mentioned to draw attention to who God is. A God who can use a dysfunctional family and bring good out of it. There's no family story that can't be rewritten, all right? So there's no family situation that God can't ultimately use for good. Incredible purposes. From God's perspective, there's no family you can count out. There's no single person in your family that you can count out either. So God is never done. The story of Jacob and Esau tells us that even in our worst family situations, our family story isn't over. All right? Even when we can't see a way through it right now, we can trust that God has a plan. My guess is that if you would have asked Jacob and Esau in that moment if God's doing some amazing things in their life, they're like, no, right now we're just trying to make it till tomorrow. Okay, God using us in the future, I have no clue how that's going to work. But right now, I just need to get to the next minute. Or, Jacob's like, I just need to get out of here before Esau kills me. All right, those aren't moments that they say, well, God will use us and use this thousands of years later as a story that for us to talk about how God can use broken people for amazing things. No, they're just trying to live their lives. they would have never realized that God would have turned their family story into a story for the ages. So for some of us, it's as difficult as it is to believe. It would be a game changer to know that God isn't done with your family. It doesn't mean that things aren't difficult. I'm not saying things are just going to all of a sudden become super easy. But a change of perspective can help to know that God isn't finished with you yet. You never know what God has in store for you, for your parents or your step-parents or your siblings or your entire family. In fact, believing that God can use your fractured family could be one of the greatest acts of faith. Start by knowing this, that your family matters even when it's fractured. Everybody who lives at your house is a fractured person. But when they mess up, don't write them off. Don't end their story because God doesn't. God is always working, even when it doesn't look like it, so don't count them out. So when your stepdad never shows up, don't write him off. So when your mom loses her temper, don't write her off forever. When your step siblings drive you crazy, don't write them off forever. And don't count yourself out either. So you don't know what's going to happen next. So don't just check out just yet. So when the chaos in your family feels like it's too much, don't isolate. When you're when the argument feels just like it's more than you can handle, don't run away. Now here's the deal. If you need to step away to keep yourself safe, do it. That's not what I'm saying, okay? There's a big difference between a dangerous situation or a situation that's just kind of an emotional hardship. But if you're being hurt physically or mentally and you need to step away, let us know. We will do everything in our power to help you in those situations. We do not ever want to keep you in a harmful situation, but what I'm talking about is the regular family drama that we all have. Okay, the physical and psychological abuse, talk to us, talk to a counselor, talk to someone, and that's a totally different situation. But what we're talking about is just that normal drama that happens that just seems to escalate and get bigger and bigger. So if you're not in danger, hang in there. If you are in danger, talk to us or talk to somebody, and we'll do everything we can to help you and make sure that you're in a safe place. But keep some respect and realize that God isn't finished with your situation no matter what, okay? No matter what. Even though this moment can be really chaotic and everything going on, even, we want to have that faith and trust that God can use that situation. God can use you even though you come from a broken family, because we're all live in broken families. And if you count yourself out, you may miss out on being part of an incredible story that God has for you and your family. Redeeming and fixing things that are broken is kind of what God does, all right? He takes the dysfunction and uses it for good. Because even though a broken family is never God's plan, taking broken things and pulling good out of them is what God specializes in. So take heart and have faith in what God can do. What would it look like if we all went home today and treated our family like they mattered? All right, even though it was fractured, what would change if we started thinking of ourselves and our family as permanent and not temporary? If we started thinking about them as they mattered more? What if we started to believe that God could work even in our biggest dysfunctions? I know it seems impossible, but that's why we're going into small groups to talk about these things, to give each other ideas on how to practically implement this into our own stories, into our own families, into our own homes. So as we transition and as you go into a small group, remember that God hasn't given up on your family. So you shouldn't either. I love you. I miss you. I'll see you soon.